Hey, what's up, y'all? Goats here. Very excited today because I'm going to be putting on the Supercharger on my 4Runner. Stoked about that. It's been a long time coming. Been trying to do a lot of other prep work, get things ready. Had to let this engine cool, get the Supercharger pulled off the other 4Runner. Now I've got to take this intake manifold off and bolt on the Supercharger. Well, actually I've got to put on the fuel rail, the upgraded fuel injectors and fuel rail before putting on the Supercharger, but we're also going to do that too. I'm also going to do the valve cover gaskets today on my 4Runner, just preemptively, and I've also got to cut the timing cover and or swap the timing covers from the other 4Runner. I might just do that and then swap the timing belt stickers that have the mileage and stuff on there. That'll probably be easier on me, so I actually think I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get this intake manifold unbolted, get the throttle body taken off. I've got to take off part of the air intake. I've also decided that I'm gonna run the stock air intake. I was watching some of Texas Ace's videos about his supercharged 4Runner, and he said that he was getting more horsepower with the stock air intake versus the aftermarket. So since I have the choice, I really don't care about 5 horsepower as a daily driver. I'm not trying to hot rod, but I have the choice, so I'm just gonna stick with stock and go that route. So this really isn't gonna be a how-to video on how to remove the intake manifold and stuff. There's already other really good videos on YouTube that detail how to do that. Timmy the Tool Man, their channel has a lot of really detailed how-to videos for this engine. They've got a great video about it. So I'm gonna point out some of the bolts and stuff that need to come out and show you some of the hoses that have to be removed, but other than that, I'm not really gonna do an exact how-to of how to remove this manifold. My main goal today is get this manifold removed and get the new fuel injectors and supercharger in, and hopefully get the fuel tank dropped, get the new fuel pump put in, and wire in the timing and fuel remapping for the 4Runner. I don't know if I'll get to all of that today, but we're gonna start up under the hood and get that stuff rolling. Like I said, this is not gonna be an exact how-to video, but I will be removing the air intake, or at least the tubing for it. So you got a Phillips head here to loosen, Phillips head here to loosen. I'll loosen this guy, get that hose off. I'll probably have to remove these electrical connectors. I had to remove the throttle body. So you got two 12mm nuts, and then there's 12mm bolts on the lower side. Take off some of these brackets over here, like get the diagnostics bracket, get the ground wire removed. And then I believe once I get like the throttle cable removed and disconnect some more hoses, I'm gonna be able to pull off the intake manifold, and then we'll get into the fuel rail. So I'm gonna do that now. Alrighty then, fuel rail's out, intake manifold's off. I've got to go grab the other fuel rail, get it cleaned up, get it greased up, pop that in, connect these lines, and then I'm gonna pull these valve cover gaskets. I'm not gonna film that, but I've got to do that today. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop all these coils off, get the spark plug boots out so I can replace these valve cover gaskets, and then I'll get back to bolting on the supercharger. All right, I've got the 310cc injectors in from Underdog Racing. You can see there, they're supposed to be able to spin a little bit. That's how you know they're good. I read that they should be able to move, so I'm going to leave them like that. I just hand tighten these. The torque specs probably on them is super low. These bolts, like once they get tight, you can't really go much further, so I just kind of hand tighten them and left them. This 17mm bolt back here has a washer on the side of the nut and the side of the threads. So there's two washers. Do not lose those washers. Be very, very careful when you pull that out. I loosened it with a 17mm wrench and then loosened it by hand and grabbed the washers before they fell down. And then this fuel line has to be disconnected right here where my finger is. That clip is kind of a bear to get to. I think it would be easier if you had like an elbow needle nose plier that kind of bent like a 45. It would probably grab that much easier. But I just used standard needle nose plier and then use a small flathead screwdriver to pull the clamp closer to the fitting as I squeezed with the needle nose. So those are the only issues that I ran into. I put grease on all the O-rings of these connectors. I read that you could put engine oil on them. I chose to put grease. Saw some other people putting grease just to maybe block out any extra dirt from getting in there. So we're good on the fuel rail. All right, it's day 2. I ran out of time yesterday because of the valve cover gaskets. Took me a little longer than expected. Couldn't find some tools that I needed, but I got that done and I had to call it a day, get back to the house. So we're back at it today. I'm going to put the dynamic tensioner on next. It goes right in this area. So I've got to loosen up the alternator to get the belt off and also do the same thing for the power steering pump over here. Get this belt off so I can run the belt for the supercharger and get the dynamic tensioner on. So that's what we'll do next. And I've got my timing cover cut here. All I did was just swap it from the other 4Runner. I'm going to see if I can take the timing belt sticker and heat it up and transfer it to the other one. So I didn't bother cutting because there was already one cut and mine wasn't cut, so I just swapped the covers. Let's see what else here. To get this alternator loosened, there's a bolt on the front end here where my finger is going up under the pulley there, or it's a nut rather, and then there's a adjustment bolt on this side over here. I believe they are 12mm. They look like it from here. And the instructions for the supercharger say to put the alternator about in the middle of the bracket. So I'm going to get that as close as I can and get it in the middle of the bracket, and then I'll just loosen up the power steering pump. I don't think there's anything special you have to do for power steering. I just need it loosened so I can take this belt off and put the supercharger belt on. Let's see, I've ordered a new power steering belt because this one is starting to fray. It's not here yet, but hopefully here soon. Yeah, so we're gonna get after it. All right, the belts are off. So there's a 14mm bolt here, there's a 12mm below the pulley, and a 12mm adjustment on the side here. So you've got to loosen the upper and lower, and then you can spin the adjustment so the alternator moves. That'll free up the belt. You just slide it in, the belt will pop off. Power steering pump over here. Let's see, not really getting good light because of the sun. There's a 14mm. Man, it's hard to see in there. 14mm there where my finger is, 14mm below it, and then another 14mm on the adjustment bolt right there where my finger is. Really hard to see, sorry about that. And then the adjustment nut or bolt, as you can, I think you can see it down in there. You have to come at it from this side down here and go in, even though you can't see it. There's too many hoses and stuff for me to get in there. You adjust that, and then the last one is the AC belt all the way on the bottom, and you have to loosen that pulley right there with a 14 millimeter, and then there's an adjustment bolt on the underside. And my 4Runner, it's actually missing. So here's the, you'd undo the pulley here for the AC, and then the adjustment is right here where my middle finger is. And this pulley will slide up and down. That'll free the belt, and then you just weave those. The AC belt will come straight down. The other two you have to weave around the fan, and then those come out. All right, I believe I'm ready to put in the dynamic tensioner. There's 2 bolt locations under here. Let me see if I can show you those. Okay. Hopefully you can see these 2 bolt holes. It's really hard for me to get my fingers in here. There's one on my thumb right there, and then the other one down there where my index finger is. So the top bolt is a hex head, 6 millimeter, that gets torqued to 25 foot-pounds, and then the lower bolt is a 17 millimeter longer bolt that goes through the bracket, that gets torqued to 40 foot-pounds. I had to screw in the lower bolt multiple times because that's just an open space on the engine, so it had some mud and stuff in there. So I sprayed some brake cleaner and then kept threading in the 17 millimeter bolt. Like, I think I did it like 7 or 8 times until it would thread pretty easily. At first I couldn't even get it started, so hopefully that's good. Yeah, now we're just gonna go ahead and put the tensioner in. Now that all the old belts are removed, everything's loosened up. I've got the belt for the supercharger. The dynamic tensioner is in. You can see right there, torque to spec. Now we're gonna start threading the belts on. Got the belts on. I've got to tighten everything up, snug everything up, so I'm not fully done yet, but they're routed. As you see, I used arrows here to mark which direction the belts face, so they spin the same direction when they get put back on the vehicle. And now it's time to tighten everything up. Another little tidbit, I did some research about this check valve here. They say you don't need it on the 2001 and newer 4Runners, but people said they had issues not using this, so I went ahead and bought one. So it blocks air from going a certain direction. So if you blow in it, air's coming through, air's not coming through. So you want to block air from getting in the throttle body. So I want to orient it to where air can flow into the engine but not into the throttle body. And then you install it on a straight part of the hose here on the throttle body. But the vacuum hose and the coolant hose are very similar in size. So the vacuum hose doesn't have a clip on it, I believe, and the coolant hose does. So just make sure you cut the right one before you install this. I was having some GoPro battery issues, but I've got everything connected. I got the belt tensioner on, the belt's on. All my hoses are reattached, ground wires reattached, throttle cable is secured. Got a nice click there. I just bent this bracket back, so it has 3 bolts right here, or 3 threads. Slid it to the farthest one to the left, and then bent this bracket vertical, and seems to be working all right. The throttle is like fully released right there, and it's like, it's snug but not pulling on the throttle, so I think we're good there. Let's see, what else did I do while the camera was down? I just connected all my air hoses, got the air intake all snugged up, tightened this, tightened these guys, and I figured out what the T-valve, the T-connector is for. So you've got a little nipple back here on the supercharger, and there's a nipple below it on the fuel rail. So these hoses right here that I'm wiggling, the one lower one's going into the fuel rail, and this one's going into the supercharge, and then this will connect to the Underdog Racing ECU performance unit for boost measurement. So I have to run a hose probably through here, and then I'm going to wire in the Underdog Racing performance calibration unit on the passenger side of the vehicle. So that's what I'm going to take on next, try and get that done, because otherwise the fuel injectors and having the supercharger, like, it's just, I don't think it's going to run that good. So before I even try and crank this thing, I'm going to get the performance calibration unit wired up, and if I have time today, I'm also going to try and put in the new fuel pump in the gas tank, because I have a bigger fuel pump. So I'm going to try and get everything done today, but not 100% sure. So let's keep moving. Got the performance calibration unit here. So what I need to do is take these wires. I actually have the wiring diagram on my phone here, and you can see all these connectors. I'm going to unplug these, and I have to splice into some of these wires. So I'm going to do that, and then I will run the little boost cable here through the firewall. Yeah, hopefully that's not too difficult, but that's where we're at. I don't think I'm going to film this part of it, because it's too hard to get the camera in here, and I'm just going to be soldering wires. So I'll show you what the end result looks like, but for now I'm just going to get some work done, and I'll catch back up with you in a second here. Okay, I've got the performance calibration unit wired in. I've got to put everything back together. Just wanted to show you here. This took me a while because there's not a lot of room to work in here, and I was trying to solder all the connections. So I got everything soldered up. That one's capped because it's not used, but everything is soldered and has electrical tape on it, so it should be good to go. I put the unit right here, so I'm just gonna stuff it. It'll hide behind this kick panel like so. So it actually fits in there nicely. You can't see it, so that's what I'm gonna do with that. And the supercharger is fully in. So the last thing to do is the fuel pump. Let's see, the fuel pump, I think that's it. Yeah, I just got to drop the gas tank and put the fuel pump in. But I'm actually going to make another video for that because I feel like this one's getting kind of long. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. The supercharger's installed. I've got the performance calibration unit installed in the vehicle. The last thing to do is put the upgraded fuel pump in the vehicle, and I think that's going to take me a while because I have to drop the gas tank. I've never done it before, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to continue building this 4Runner. All right, catch you guys on the next one.